I want to make this video to answer two questions for myself. First, am I getting happier over time? Second, is my mood getting more stable over time? To do so, I've tracked my mood for 1,000 days, and now we're going to dig into the numbers. If you're new here, my name is Olivier and I'm a certified math and physics teacher in Ontario who is currently doing a master's in statistics at Carleton University. Okay, so I guess we can begin by exploring the app that I use to track my mood. So it's Daylio App, the app you can see on the screen here. You have my previous few days entries. You can see that yesterday on July 9th at 7:09 p.m. I tracked that I was good. So good is a 4 out of 5. The day before I tracked a meh. That's 3 out of 5. And by the way, I created those moods myself. So you can just tap the plus button at the bottom. You can track other days and so on, but we're gonna do today. And how are you on 1 to 5? And you can see that I have a few moods for each category. So let's say today I'm doing pretty well. I would put maybe a 4, life is good, and so on. If I want to be a 5, I have different moods that I created. If I'm a 3, so let's say I am doing life is good. Then I have the activities that I did today. I'm not tracking them right now, so that's why you only see the 3 questions that I ask myself every day. And it's basically to define what I think is a successful day. And let's say today, did I learn or create? Well, yes, I'm doing that right now. Did I help someone? Probably will today at some point. Have I paid proper attention to life and the mystery? Maybe not, right? So then I won't put that. If I put a note, I'll write mood video. I can also take a picture to add, and then I tap save. Now you can see the July 10th entry appear on the main screen. You have a bunch of statistics that come within the app, and you can see that the longest chain is 1,052, but I did my analysis keeping only 1,000 entries. So I'll just look at those. And to do so, I used R and I exported my entries using this feature, export entries as a CSV table. And now let's hop into R and the plots that I created with it. Okay, I'm currently displaying a blog article that I wrote. The link will be in the description below. And basically what we have here is the 1,000 entries that I exported. Keep in mind that there's sometimes more than one entry per day. So for example, let's say I was really frustrated in the morning. Then I might have wrote like a 1 out of 5, but then I had a really good time in the evening. Then I might have wrote a 4 out of 5. So my average mood for the day would be 1 plus 4 divided by 2, which would be a 2.5 if I'm doing the math correctly. So there's 1,000 days worth of data, but there's also more than 1,000 entries because sometimes there's more than one per day. But basically this is the most common mood distribution. So my mood goes from 1 to 5. You can imagine by the color scheme and the little caption at the bottom. Higher mood is equal to happier. So basically 5 is good moods, 1 is less pleasant moods, and the most common mood is a 4 out of 5. And I think that kind of confirms happiness literature as well. Out of a scale of 1 to 10, I think people rate 7 most often. So here we have a 4 out of 5 as the most common one. The second most common one is a 5 out of 5, and then a 2, and then a 3, and then the least common one is a 1. So I think this chart, getting that idea of what your mood looks like more often than not, is already pretty powerful for some people, right? Like I've seen some people have 2 the most common. It's basically like if you flip the chart upside down, or left to right, I guess. And keep in mind, you only put 1 entry per day, maybe 2, maybe 3 at most. But ideally you'd have a continual mood monitor, kind of like a continual glucose monitor that would track your mood every few seconds. So that would be ideal. Okay, so that's basically, it's skewed to the left. That's an insightful thing. And then we have the subcategories. You can see, for example, that there's a little bit more life is good than just good. There's more grateful and meaningful days than Zen days. There's more mad and tired days. And angry is the one that dominates my 1 category. So you can go look at the subcategories if you want. But that's just to dig a little deeper. The big picture is what we're interested in, like the skewness on which side. Some people think that they're normally distributed. Most of their days are a 3. But to me, a 3 is not the average day. The average day turns out to be closer to a 4, right? And that depends on how you rate the day. And it also depends on your general happiness levels. So now let's dig into some stats, because really I had 2 questions that I wanted to cover. 1, am I getting happier over time? And 2, am I getting more stable over time? So is my average mood going up? And is my mood going less up and down, essentially, right? Here I just picked 10 days from my 1000 days. And if we look at from the top to bottom here on September 1st, 2018, I scored a 4 out of 5, and then the next day a 5, 5, 4, 5. So that's a pretty good 5 days, right? But then you can get a sense of what is your cumulative mood rating. So cumulative just means you keep in mind all the things before it. So on the first day, what's my average mood? Well, I only have 1 entry, so it's 4 divided by 1, which is 4, right? And then after 2 days, well, I have a 5 and a 4. So you can imagine that it's between 4 and 5, and it turns out it's 4 plus 5 divided by 2, which is 9 divided by 2, which is 4.5. So that's where I get this 4.5. And then after 3 days, I had 2 5s and 1 4, so you can imagine it's closer to the 5 than the 4. So that's 14 divided by 3, because I have 3 days now, and that would be 4.67. And then you can keep going like this. I think that would be 14 plus 4, so that's 18 divided by 4. That's the same thing as 9 divided by 2, which is 4.5. And then I get another 5, which bumps it up to 4.6. So that's the cumulative average, if you want, right? So every day you can get a sense of, is my mood going up or down, based keeping in mind everything that came before it. So that's a good thing to know. You can also think of the variation, so how much it varies, with a standard deviation. So standard deviation, it's a more complex formula. I don't even go into it in my article, but basically it just measures how much you vary. The next thing we can do is we can plot the table below with the 1000 days. So you can see on the x-axis is time. It starts in 2018 approximately, goes all the way up to 2021. And it takes time to stabilize, right? It seems like I had a few 3-ish days, and then it goes all the way up to 4.3 maximum after 6 months-ish, and then it stabilizes to about 3.7. So after 1000 days, my mood is very stable around 3.7, and it might stay like this, it might go up or down, but now I have a pretty good sense of my baseline. I don't think there's many people that can answer this question, what's my average mood? What's my baseline mood, right? So then you can get a sense of if something actually improves your mood by tracking. Let's say you started to meditate or work out, you can ask the question, is my baseline different when I do this than compared to when I don't do this? So then we can look at the standard deviation. Like I said, it's the same x-axis, it's the time, and then your cumulative standard deviation. It basically is very stable around 1.2. So then what I can get is that my average mood is 3.7, and then plus minus 1.2. So basically I can go up to a 4.9, and I can go up to a 2.5. So that's most of my entries are between a 2.5 and a 4.9, which makes sense intuitively if we go back to the distribution, which most of my days were a 4 or a 5, right? So that makes sense. So now you can dive deeper in the question, am I getting happier? Because it seemed like my mood was pretty stable over time, and even that it decreased initially. We can also display the dots and standard deviation using ggplot and R, which kind of smoothens out the dots, right? So on the x-axis, we have the dates again. On the y-axis, we have the mood rating from 1 to 5. And you can see that it starts out about 3.8, and then level reaches a low at 3.6, and then kind of is 3.7 by the end. But the scale makes it look like it's varying quite a bit. But keep in mind that's like 0.1 point out of 1 to 5. So it's not even like I'm going from an average 4 to an average 3. I'm just going from 3.8 to maybe 3.7 or 3.6. So it's very small. So if you plot this from 1 to 5, the picture looks a lot different, right? This is 1 down here. This is 5 up here. So you can see that my mood has been relatively about 3.7 and the error has been relatively stable. So that means that I'm not getting more or less stable and I'm not getting more or less happier. I'm always around 3.7 with a standard deviation of 1.2. I hope you found this analysis helpful. Maybe it made you think about your own mood. You can comment if you found anything interesting below that helps generate a discussion. And for me, my biggest takeaway was to know that my baseline is 3.7 plus minus 1.2. It's also nice to know the distribution because now I have a pretty good idea that most days is a 4 and then after that it's a 5 and 3 and so on, where I know a lot of people it's different. So what's your mood distribution? The whole process of going through those 1000 days has to make you reflect on what it means to be happy. There's so many questions that came up. One of them is there different types of happiness? Is all this different subcategories of a 5 out of 5 the same? Is having a meaningful day the same thing as having a blissful or grateful day? Maybe not. Is the difference between a 3 out of 5 and a 4 out of 5 mood, can it really be quantified mathematically by a unit of 1, like 3 to 4? Probably not again. Another big question is there an ideal mood distribution? Mine was mostly 4, some 5, some 3s, but is the ideal mood distribution always 5 with no variability? Isn't it part of human life to have some variability? Some would argue that maybe the variability can be found between different types of 5. For example, Buddha might always be at 5, who knows, right? But it might be different types of 5. So one day if he spent the whole day helping someone, it might be different than being in a blissful meditation, perhaps. And generally, the thing that I've been reflecting on the most is if my mood hasn't been getting better, despite maybe you could argue that my external circumstances have been, are we doomed to be always baseline happy but never fully happy, whatever that even means? Do you think we're significantly happier today than we were 2,000 years ago? I think it's clear that our external environments got significantly better. Most of us have electricity, access to clean water, and so on. But maybe we're not significantly happier. So that has to raise deeper questions. For me, the deepest question of all is, am I okay with staying at a 3.7 plus minus 1.2 with the rest of my life? Is that something I'm okay with? If so, why do I keep striving to achieve more all the time? It seems like chasing happiness might be a dead end. If you like this video, you're probably going to enjoy the other Daylio and mood videos I plan to make, so make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you get notified. I also post blog articles on the topic, so you can subscribe to the newsletter. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time with Do the Work.